A very good afternoon to you from the sports desk. Let's get on the road now and talk about motorsport. Now, 4 months ago, ahead of the Miami Grand Prix, Red Bull looked assured of another championship-winning campaign. A fourth straight title for Max Verstappen looked like a foregone conclusion. Now, the picture does not appear to be the same right now, with Lando Norris gradually cutting Verstappen's lead in the driver's standings and McLaren just 6 points behind in the Constructors' Championship. Verstappen stands without a win in 6 races now. Now, joining us to look at these developments, it's future F1 driver Mika Abrams. Mika, good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me.
Now, before we talk about the Formula One and Lando and Max and them, talk to me about your love for driving. Where and how did this start?
So growing up, I never liked motorsport. I always hated it. And then in 2017, I went to a friend's house and I played the F1 video game on his Xbox. And then I fell in love with the sport through that. And then afterwards, I started karting. And yeah, it's been a long 7 years now. But I'm in Formula 4 now and looking to progress up to Formula 3.
So it all started with a video game?
Oh, yeah, basically.
and I mean, how is that transition being from karting to Formula 4 at this point?
I think it's just mainly just physical, because like with karts, it actually feels fast because you're so low down on the ground. And in F4, you're surrounded by such big things like a halo, a whole chassis. So there was just mainly, you know, jumping up to bigger competition and training yourself harder, because it's way hard on the body. But
Mika, aren't you too young to be driving? Do you even have a driver's license?
Not at all.
So how do you drive? So you don't drive on the streets?
No, not at all.
Oh, okay. That's what you say because your parents are here.
100%.
So how does it work?
So basically, obviously I'm not allowed to drive on the road, which is so painful because my parents...
How old are you now?
I'm 16.
16. Hey, hold on.
Yeah,
almost
I get my learners next year, so can't wait for that. But no, I have.
So do you have to have a special motor?
Yeah, you have to have a special motorsport license, which is issued by Motorsport South Africa, and you have to like complete a series of races to show that you can drive and you're not just like driving around a track really slowly.
And I mean, obviously, in Formula 4 now, the objective is to get to Formula 1.
100%. That's always, from the beginning, it's always been the dream, always been the goal. And I'm grateful to say I'm in Formula 4 right now, and I'm, getting closer step by step to Formula 1.
You know, the way I'm so afraid of speed, I wouldn't want to be in a car with you. But let's talk about Formula 1 and the developments that we've seen so far. I mean, reflecting on the season so far, there's been that switch of dominance, as I mentioned when we started. What would you say, what has happened, I mean, from your perspective?
I mean, Red Bull coming into the season, obviously world champs and constructors champs, they have a lot of, they have a high pedigree that they have to live up to again. And with them losing Adrian Newey, I think that just made them crash down from like hero to zero. And obviously McLaren, they've been working hard for the past few years, and they've just developed the car into such an amazing thing that just works. Like, they have 2 amazing drivers, an amazing car, and even Ferrari, they still on the back foot, but they can still fight for wins and podiums and still give it to Red Bull. But I think with Adrian Newey leaving, Red Bull have definitely taken a step down, and McLaren and Ferrari have taken a step up.
And sometimes you think it's just about the driver, eh?
Yeah.
So there's a whole lot more to it. Now, you mentioned Ferrari, and then Ferrari and McLaren are slowly on the rise, right? We also saw this towards the end of last season. I mean, what would you credit that to, that particular rise?
I mean, I would say just Oscar and Lando being fairly still rookies. Obviously, Oscar's more new to the sport, and by race, they get more experience, they get more in touch with the car, they know they learn how to develop the car more. So it's just race by race, they gain more experience, which always helps. And, that youth will really help in their team. I think, Max is quite old now in Formula 1, and obviously Checo's a proper veteran. So there's only so much they can learn. But Lando and Oscar, they still have a mountain to climb in terms of learning, and they're both really talented. So it's just an amazing dynamic.
And I guess to a certain extent, the timing of Ferrari's rise might be good for Lewis Hamilton, right?
100%. I mean, Lewis, one of the greatest to ever do it. And going to Ferrari, the most iconic team in, motorsport history. So I think that dynamic is like it's just a dream team. And with Lewis's experience and, you know, the way he knows how to build a car, set up a car, I think Ferrari could really use a driver like him. And obviously paired up with Charles, who's very talented. It's just a dream duo.
Were you surprised by that move, by that Lewis Hamilton move? Because a lot of people was like, well, we never thought that this would happen, the way he's just been. But then also his dip in form maybe was part of the reason why he decided to try something new.
Yeah, I still remember the day I saw him sign. I was like looking at my phone and I was like, there's no way this is true.
Sure.
Like, but I think, you know, every driver, their dream is to make it to Formula One and race for Ferrari, for that prancing horse. And I think he couldn't, you know, leave the sport without racing for Ferrari. So I think that's part of the reason why he really wanted to go. And yeah.
And this could be the rise of Ferrari again. Because, I mean, as you said, Ferrari, a very iconic feature in as far as Formula One is concerned. Some great drivers in the past have driven for Ferrari.
Yeah, I mean, they've, you know, Michael Schumacher,
exactly.
Niki Lauda, many great drivers, a really decorated team. And I think it's just really fitting for Lewis to go, you know, to end off his final few seasons in Formula One with the most iconic team in history. And with obviously Ferrari being on the rise now, I think he can definitely help and they can definitely win championships soon enough with him in the team.
Red Bull have hit a bit of a rough patch now. I mean, they're losing their wings, as it were. Can they find their wings back, or is it just like a small bump on the road?
I definitely think it could be just a small bump on the road. Like Red Bull, since they've joined Formula One, they've always been potent since 2006. They've always, you know, they've always been there. They've won many championships. But I think in losing Adrian Newey, who's like one of the technical masterminds of the sport, that's a real big hitter. And they're going to struggle for a bit, but I think that they can manage and they can bring their car back up to form and they can start winning again.
There's a bit of a break now until Azerbaijan. Does that maybe help them try and fix things, tighten up some loose screws here and there ahead of Azerbaijan?
No, definitely. A break is always needed. You know, after Monza, they always go like the day after straight back to the factory and they're back to work. And everyone in those teams and at the factory, they're doing, you know, they're working really hard to make sure that car is top notch for Azerbaijan. And with Azerbaijan being such a technical track, you know, you really need to make sure that car is really amazing for those drivers, so they have to worry about little to nothing.
Can Red Bull retain their championship? Do you think they have what it takes to retain the championship?
I definitely think their car isn't as fast to retain a championship, but Max is like an unbelievable driver, so I don't know what he can do, but I think he'll just hold on to it.
So if things continue like this though, Mika, I mean, should Max stay with Red Bull? Are they at a risk of losing a good driver because of, as you say, somehow the car keeps getting a bit slower for some reason?
I mean, the car does get slower, but there are tracks where the car will still be fast. I mean, car performance varies on tracks. And I think Max's relationship with Red Bull, like, you know, he's been with Red Bull Junior and then he went to Toro Rosso and he's been with Red Bull since 2016. And that relationship he has with Christian Horner, Helmut Marko, I think that loyalty definitely, you know, is a key factor in keeping him in the team. But I mean, as to where he was going to go for the future, I really don't know. But I mean, it would be cool to see him go to a different team and try something different, but I think he'll definitely stay with Red Bull.
Imagine Ferrari with Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton.
That's a crazy lineup.
That's absolutely crazy. What's your favorite team?
McLaren.
McLaren?
Yeah.
Why?
I like the drivers that have driven for them. Like, I like Piastri now.
Sure.
I've liked, you know, Ayrton Senna, Niki Lauda, all these prestigious drivers. Like even Bruce McLaren, when he created the team, just like his story from how he made it in New Zealand is really inspiring.
Let's end the conversation touching back on you and your future ambitions. You did say that eventually it's Formula One. I mean, do you think that there is proper support, you know, in terms of riding, in terms of facilities in South Africa to help you achieve that dream?
I definitely think, you know, in South Africa we're on the back foot when it comes to motorsport because motorsport's always been a Eurocentric sport. So we've never really had like the opportunity to, you know, bring lots of drivers over to Europe, race in those championships. But I think now there's lots of drivers that are starting to move overseas, starting to race overseas, including myself. And I think we're definitely on the rise, and there's still lots of work to be done.
And just finally, Lewis Hamilton has been an advocate to try and bring Formula One to South Africa. I'm sure you agree with the idea, should it happen.
100%.
Costly exercise, I'm sure, but I'm sure you'd love to see and possibly drive in that Formula One in South Africa.
I think, yeah, F1 Grand Prix coming to South Africa is a dream come true, and then it's just like extra motivation to make it to Formula One. So I get to race at my home Grand Prix and hopefully win my home Grand Prix. But hopefully it's something that'll happen in the future.